Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our hadith class. We are doing the kitab known as Riyaadhus Saaliheen of Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. We are dealing still with the chapter of Kathratu Turuq al-Khair, the chapter that there are many different avenues of good deeds, and we had completed 9 ahadith from this chapter last week. Tonight inshallah ta'ala we are starting from the 10th hadith. So let us begin. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we are doing the 126th hadith of the kitab Al-Ashiru, the 10th hadith of the chapter. Anhu radiyallahu anhu anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam qala baynama rajulun yamshi bi tariqin ishtadda alayhi al-a'tash fawajada bi'ran fanazala fiha fashariba. The 10th hadith reported as well from Hazrat Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu, who said that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, while a man was walking, يمشي بطريق, he was walking on the road, اشتد عليه العطش. While he was walking, he was overcome with thirst. It was hot. It's a long journey. He had no water on him. So the thirst, it wasn't just, I'm thirsty now, let me get some water out. No. Ishtadda, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, the thirst became severe on him. If you've ever been working whole day, your throat is it's coarse, it's hard, it's rough, it's like you can feel sand in your mouth, so dry it is. That type of thirst that he was undergoing. So فَوَجَدَ بِئْرًا, and while he's walking like this in the state, he finds a well. فَنَزَلَ فِيهَا, and it's a big well, so there's no bucket on the well, so he gets into the well. He climbs down into the well, and fashariba, there's water in the well, so he drinks, and his thirst is now quenched. So ثم خرج, he comes out of the well. As he comes out of the well, فَإِذَا كَلْبٌ يَلْهَثُ يَأْكُلُ الثَّرَى مِنَ الْعَطَشِ. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that as he comes out of the well, he sees a dog. The dog is panting. يَأْكُلُ الثَّرَى. Literally it means to eat sand, but what it meant is that around the well, the water which falls there, the water around the well tends to be, the sand around the well tends to be mixed with a little bit of water because it's a water source, so it's damp sand. So the dog is so thirsty that it is licking the sand to get that bit of moisture. So thirsty, it's about to die of thirst, that it's willing to lick wet sand just to get some sort of moisture in its mouth. So فقال رجل, and the man sees the dog doing this, and he says, لقد بلغ هذا الكلب من العطش مثل الذي كان قد بلغ مني. That the same type of thirst that I was undergoing, it's befallen this dog here as well. فنزل البئر, so he went back down into the well. فملأ خفه ماء, so he took his khuf. Now khuf literally it means your leather sock. It can also refer to a bag or some container made out of leather, but we go with the khuf because that is the word Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam uses. So he didn't exactly have containers on him, but he happened to have the sock that he was wearing. So it was the only thing, being leather, it could store water within it. So he got into the well, he filled the sock with water, and carrying this as his container, he came back out of the well. So ثم أمسكه بفيه, so he held the khuf by its mouth. In other words, he held the khuf by its opening to prevent the water from falling out. حتى رقي فسق الكلب, so he kept it in this manner to preserve as much water in the sock as possible. حتى رقي, until he came out of the well. فسق الكلب, so he gave the water now to the dog to drink. And what happened? فشكر الله له فغفر له. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that Allah so loved this action that Allah forgave him on account of it. Allah so appreciated the word used is shukr. We understand the word shukr as in thankfulness, gratitude, and things. In other words, Allah who could feed the dog and give the dog rain and water from avenues that we cannot imagine. But it shows the point of being of help and benefit to the creation of Allah. So one action, minuscule in the eyes of people, but he took this water and he gave it to a dog no less. And I'll speak about the point of a dog after the hadith is complete. So he gave it to the dog, just like that, for the sake of it. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they now commented, قالوا يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن لنا في البهائم أجرا. That, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, do we get reward for animals also? In other words, for good kind treatment of animals. So فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, so Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, في كل كبد رطبة أجر متفق عليه. That Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم replied that for every kabid means a liver, ratabatin means wet. For every wet liver there is a reward. What it means is, for every living being there is a reward if you are kind to it. This hadith is muttafaqun alayh, reported both by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahumullah. Now there's two further paragraphs. I'll read all of this and then I'll come back to just comment on this point from the hadith. وفي رواية للبخاري فشكر الله له فغفر له فأدخله الجنة. In the narration of Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Allah so appreciated this action of his that Allah forgave him. Not just did Allah forgive him, but فأدخله الجنة, that Allah forgave him and Allah entered him into Jannah on account of it. وفي رواية لهما, there's another narration of this hadith with a slightly different story but the same moral to it. Both Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahumullah reports this hadith, and it's the more famous of the two as far as most people are concerned, which is بينما كلب يطيف بركية قد كاد يقتله العطش. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that while there was a dog, يطيف طاف, from the word طاف tawaf, which means to go around. So there was a dog going around a rakiya, which means a well, a dog that was going around a well. قد كاد يقتله العطش, it was about to die of thirst. إذ رأته بغي من بغايا بني إسرائيل, and this dog was seen by a prostitute from the prostitutes of Bani Israel. فنزعت موقها, so she took off her موق is her khuf. فاستقت له به فسقته, so she took off her sock, filled it with water in order to give water to the dog, and she now took this water out, gave it to the dog to drink, and فغفر لها به, on account of that action Allah forgave her. Speaking purely from the point of you can look at it, a woman who's engaging in zina, not just, the hadith doesn't just say, for example, somebody that happened to have committed zina, but we're talking about a woman who was a prostitute. It was like her business. She's committing zina all the time. It's not somebody who did a once-off thing and repented. We're talking about a person who has made it their livelihood. And yet, it doesn't mean that if you are a prostitute now, go out and feed a dog and it's all okay. No. What it points out is that such is the how Allah appreciates a person's actions, that for something minuscule that you may not even cross your mind, that is the amount of reward that Allah is willing to give for it. So Allah forgave the man and Allah forgave this woman, and on account of Allah forgiving them, what it also you also understand from this is that their lives were now turned around, or at least in the case of the prostitute, or it can even mean that this one deed was so rewarding that there comes a hadith to the effect that a person can do a deed and you think nothing about it, and Allah so loves it that Allah enters you into Jannah. And you can do a deed, words to the effect, and you think nothing of it, and Allah so despises it that Allah casts you into Jahannam. So you can do something which is la yulqi laha balan, as Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says in that hadith. It doesn't even cross your mind as anything, but it is so serious in the sight of Allah that Allah either loves it so much that nothing you do thereafter is more severe or greater in the sight of Allah than that one deed. So Allah forgives you for everything going forward. Or everything going forward falls, or at least everything going forward doesn't overpower that one crime that you had done. That's how serious things are. Now, on the flip side of the coin, here we see the hadith of the people going to Jannah on account of things. There's another hadith in this in a like manner of a woman who tied up a cat, and she didn't feed the cat, and she didn't let the cat free to go and eat and find its own food to eat, and the cat died in this manner, and Allah put her into Jahannam on account of it. So you can see the one side, a small deed like this can take you to Jannah. On the other side, people think, it's a dumb animal, what does it matter? It's my cat, it's my dog, I can do with it what I want to. No, you can't. Ill treatment of animals will land you in Jahannam. It's not just, it's an animal, what does it matter? It's not a human being. No, it is a creation of Allah, and as a result of it, which it has its own rights to. And abuse of creatures is a serious offense from a Shari'i perspective. But there's one point that, reading this hadith, a point came to mind. We understand with regards to dogs that it's the saliva of the dogs. A lot of times people get the wrong impression and they think the entire dog is impure. No, it is the saliva of the dog which is impure, not the body of the dog, for example. So it doesn't mean if a dog brushed against you, well, it's you were walking and a dog, its flank brushed you, that now your clothing is dirty. No, if the dog came and licked your clothing, yes, then that portion is dirty, but the body itself is not impure. But what we understand from this, or at least what I should say, what we should be understanding from this hadith, is that in Islam, a dog is not seen as man's best friend the way the kuffar look upon it. Rather, it is a creature that is on the dirty side that we don't associate with. So in other words, what comes to mind here is the issue of Baraa'ah. You disavow, you don't associate with this creature. But that does not translate to transgression. So you find, for example, a hadith which speaks about Baraa'ah from the kuffar, and you hear about wahum saghirun, a dhimmi, he's living in an Islamic land, he pays the jizya and everything of the sort here. So we say we love for the sake of Allah, we hate for the sake of Allah, and things like this. And people say, how can you hate the kafir and his kufr and then be kind towards them at the same time? The people feel it to be an oxymoron, only because they don't understand the way things work. When the Sharia says that you hate the kafir, not hate the kufr, not the kafir, you hate the kafir and the kufr, because they are one and the same. They cannot be separated from one another unless he leaves the state of kufr and become into the state of iman. So anyway, so the disavowal you have from a dog does not mean that you are permitted to oppress the dog. It does not mean that a dog come near and you chase it and you kick it away. That is not the way of a Muslim. You will be punished by Allah if you do such a thing. It's a different story if it's a dangerous dog and you're afraid the dog can bite you or something. Now, out of fear, you chasing the dog away. That's a different story. But now you have a little tiny puppy coming along and you want to kick it over there. That is not the way of a Muslim. And I'm the last person on earth who's taken in by dogs. I prefer cats, but the point being that as a Muslim, we are not permitted to ill-treat an animal. So in an Islamic state, when you have a kafir, he's a dhimmi now. So he lives under the khilafah, he pays the jizya and stuff like this here. You have no right to oppress him, to transgress against him, to take his wealth or anything of the sort, because he's now a saved person under the Islamic law. You harm him, you will be taken to task. So this, from the understanding of this, because it wasn't just any animal. It wasn't a sheep. It wasn't a cat or some pure animal. It was a dog that we know to be one of the impure animals. It's a dog that sometimes people feel, let's kill all the dogs, leave them to die. There was a time and place when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave the command to kill the dogs and then kill only the pure black ones. But the killing of normal dogs, that command was lifted. So long story short, there are a lot of ahadith regarding dogs. how they remove your reward if you keep them, except if it's for the valid Shari'i reasons, and all those sort of stuff. But what it basically comes down to is that a dog is not a creature that is conducive for a Muslim to keep in a general situation. But still, it behoves us as Muslims to treat all animals with kindness. So it doesn't mean, oh, it's a pig. Allah is still the creator of that pig. Allah will still take you to task if you oppress and torture that pig. Doesn't mean, that pig that you look upon there, that dog that you look down upon, those creatures believe in Allah. The kafir doesn't believe in Allah, but that dog and that pig believes in Allah. There's not a pig on earth who's a kafir. Every pig knows that Allah is the one that had created it. And that's why, all the animals, all of them worship Allah in their own ways. We don't understand how, but they worship Allah. So a dog or a pig, we may deem them as being impure from a Shari'i perspective. So we don't touch them, and things of the sort. We don't play around in the pig pen and things like this, or go and play and let dogs lick you and everything. We don't do such things. So we keep our distance from them, but we treat them with kindness. If you see a dog, one of those dogs whose ribs you can see so bony and hungry it is. Now you see the dog scratching around there, it's got nothing, it's dying, and you're like, just leave it, let it die. You've got enough food over there, you can give it a little bit of something, and you feel, no, why? It's a dog, let it die. That is not the way of a Muslim. You can see how, in a case like this here, where a man and a woman gave a bit of water to a dog that was thirsty, and the action was so beloved by Allah that Allah forgave them and entered them into Jannah on account of it. So you may think nothing of it, but what it shows is that the kind treatment to the creation of Allah holds a very high rank in the sight of Allah. I spent a lot of time on this hadith. Let us move on before the entire night is gone. Let's move on. Hadith number 11, 127 of the Kitab. Al-Hadi Ashara. عنه رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لقد رأيت رجلا يتقلب في الجنة في شجرة قطعها من ظهر الطريق كانت تؤذي المسلمين. رواه مسلم. So 11th hadith also reported by Hadrat Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu, which was So Hadrat Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لقد رأيت رجلا يتقلب في الجنة. I saw a man going around in Jannah. In other words, he was happy, enjoying himself in Jannah. Why? في شجرة قطعها من ظهر الطريق. Because of a tree that he had cut out of the road. كانت تؤذي المسلمين. The tree was a bother in the way it was busy harming Muslims. So a man came along and he said, you know what? I'm going to cut this tree out here to remove the difficulty from the road of the Muslims. And on account of that action, Allah entered him into Jannah. Imam Muslim rahimahullah is the narrator of this hadith. Next two hadith are follow-up similar narrations, so I'm going to read them both as well. وفي رواية مر رجل بغصن شجرة على ظهر الطريق فقال والله لا أنحين هذا عن المسلمين لا يؤذيهم فأدخل الجنة. The second hadith is a man passed by a branch of a tree which had stuck out now into the road, and the man said, "Wallahi, la unahiyanna." I will most definitely move this branch out of the way. In other words, I will remove this branch from the way of the Muslims so that it does not harm them. فأدخل الجنة. And on account of that, Allah entered him into Jannah. وفي رواية لهما إن حديث reported both by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim رحمهما الله بينما رجل يمشي بطريق وجد غصن شوك على الطريق فأخره فشكر الله له فغفر له. The other narration which Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahumullah report is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, while a man was walking in the road, he found a branch of a thorny tree that was in the road. So, people were pricked by the thorns of that branch that was hanging over. So, فَأَخَّرَهُ, he moved it. He removed it, in other words. So, by him removing it, that problem, that harm, that difficulty that was caused to the Muslims, it was now gone. فَشَكَرَ اللَّهُ لَهُ فَغَفَرَ لَهُ. Allah so appreciated this action of his that Allah forgave him. When it says here that Allah forgave him, it don't mean forgive once, two sin. It means Allah forgives him for everything on account of one minuscule, little, tiny action that people deem to be unimportant. You know, you in today's world of roads, you have sidewalks, you have gardens, you know, so it will apply to whatever the situation is. If it's in the road and you know now there's a branch in the road, so people can't ride normally, or in a South African context, there's a crater in the road which is called a pothole, even though you can throw a car inside there, so deep it is. So there's a big crater over there. You have the means, you throw some stones, some sand and stuff, and you fill it up like this here. That is a means of reward for you. Obviously, nobody's saying stand there in the middle of the road and get yourself driven over. Not at all. But, you know, if you have the means to have it filled, doesn't mean you must go throw it full now with tar and everything of the sort. If you can just throw something in to help that people's cars don't fall and crash as they go through that pothole, then that is a means of reward for you. If you are on a sidewalk and you find, again in a South African context, you have these manhole covers and people, they stolen the manhole cover. So there's a hole over there. So now people can fall in there, especially if it's at night and they're not used to the area. After all, street lights hardly ever work. So the man is walking, he can't see, he don't notice the hole, he falls inside it. He can hurt himself, he can die even. So you put something over the hole, a plank or whatever, or you put some demarcation around there so people are aware, you know, that they must be aware that they can, something can, that there's a hole or something to avoid that area. That is a means of reward for you. You can, it can be in a case where there's a grassy patch where people walk through, etc. And for example, now there is some poison ivy branch running along the floor over there. So people will come and sit down to have a picnic, for example, but now not noticing that there's poison ivy over there, which will harm them again. So you remove it. You will be rewarded for it. So for every different thing, and you can apply this to 1,001 other scenarios as well. The point being, something which causes harm to others, if you remove it, Allah will reward you. You know, sometimes people get the idea, you know, like, why must I do it? It's not my duty, it's the municipality's duty. And it is the municipality's duty to do it. But from a point of a Muslim, if you remove it, Allah rewards you. So you can decide what you want. It's not a matter of name and fame, you know, people must see me, take pictures of me while I'm filling the holes or while I'm busy moving harmful things. No, not at all. In fact, if you can do it without people seeing you, all the better. But the point being that deeds that people deem to be unimportant, people is like, okay, in today's world, it's like a big thing if you do such a thing. People will put you in the newspaper, you know, humanitarian work you did by filling potholes. That's how rare it is for people to do such acts. But in the old days, you know, it was like, there's something in the way, I'll just remove it. So a minuscule small act. Like I said, today it's like a big act. Okay, let's put it in a more practical perspective. They can be on a sidewalk where people walk, and it's not a big thing. There maybe you notice that there's some broken glass, for example. So somebody's there was either accident or some drunk person threw a beer bottle broken over there, so there's glass scattered all over. So people are going to have to walk through the glass because they obviously not everybody can jump over the glass. So you sweep the glass out of the way, or you kick it out of the way, whatever you plan on doing, but you remove it from the path so that people can walk through. It's a small act. It's a little thing. Nobody's going to see you as being a hero for doing it. So minuscule it is. An act like that can earn you Jannah. An act like that can earn you complete forgiveness. Obviously, you don't do it thinking, well, if I've cleaned the road, it means I'm going to Jannah and all my sins are forgiven. Not at all. Because Allah knows the seek what the hearts conceal and the sincerity and everything. All of that is taken into account. But the point being, an action like this that you deem to be unimportant is something which is greatly loved in the sight of Allah, and Allah will reward you greatly. And what greater reward is there than entering you into Jannah and forgiving you of all your sins? I mean, every one of us, if we could know with certainty that Allah has forgiven our sins and Allah has entered us into Jannah, who would worry? I mean, what would there be to worry about? It's like we can die right now then, because it means I've been successful. Allah has forgiven me and Allah has guaranteed me Jannah. What more is there to ask for? That's how great a reward it is that Allah is giving for a deed that you deem to be unimportant and minuscule. So what it is showing is that if Allah can give you this reward for something which is small, imagine how much reward Allah can still give you for something which is big. But anyway, the thing which remains, the common thread that runs through all of these hadith that we just did here now, is that people, here you helped, removed a harmful thing. In the other one, you aided a creature of Allah. So all it boils down to is being of benefit to the world. So whether it be an animal or a human being, the Muslims, something is harming them, something is in the way, you remove it. Somebody is hungry, somebody is thirsty, you give them food, you give them something to drink, things of this sort. You may deem it to be unimportant. You may deem it to be, well, it's just a glass of water. It's just a slice of bread. But that just glass of water and the just slice of bread can, on the day that you die and you come in front of Allah, and maybe your salah were not done in the greatest form. You made your salah, but you weren't exactly a pious person, let's put it this way, a saint performing tahajjud and everything. You weren't on that level. You were just a normal person. But you find that there's a great glowing deed waiting for you that's weighing like heavier than a mountain, and you're like, what is this? And Allah has the malaika, or Allah tells you that it was on that occasion when there was this person and, they were sick and something, and you helped them. You saw an old person and they were struggling with their packet, and you went there and you helped them. Or you saw somebody and they looked like they're about to faint, and you helped them. Come, sit down. Let me get you something to drink, something of the sort like this. You didn't think anything. You thought, I'm just being a normal, helpful person. The person is in difficulty. But for that deed, that didn't cross your mind as being that I'm setting out to do ibadah. It didn't cross your mind that you're doing ibadah. You did it because a person was in need. But you may not realize that one deed that you did would be the deed that you need to succeed. And there you are, you've passed away, and Jannah is waiting for you for that deed that you deemed to be unimportant and minuscule. So that's what we take home from these ahadith over here. I know I've only read 2 ahadith for the night, but the lesson that we learn from these ahadith, a person can actually speak for another 2 nights on it, but obviously we're not going to be doing that. But the point being that, how merciful Allah is, how generous Allah is, that for the deeds that you're a normal person, you take your bread and you scatter it in the bird, you feed the birds. And the next person puts out a saucer of milk for the cats to come. Or, there's somebody's cat that comes by. It's not my cat, but the cat comes by and it meows, and the cat is hungry, and you put something out for the cat to eat. Not it's some other person's cat. Why should I feed it? No. You see, there's a way to help, you help. There's somebody who's in need, you assist them. There's something which is harmful, you remove it. You don't look at passing the buck to somebody else. This is somebody else's job to do. This is somebody else's problem. It's not my issue. But the thing is, obviously, if it is somebody else's property and you are not allowed on there, maybe somebody who you in a conservatory with a growing now poison ivy, now you go and cut up the poison ivy. You don't go doing things of that sort. Or somebody's growing their rose bushes now, and you say, hey, these thorns can be harmful, so I'll go and cut the branch. You don't do such things. Obviously, use your mind. You don't go, and these things are not harming anyone when they are in their places there. You are trespassing. So we're not talking about those cases. We're talking about in a normal situation. When something is harming the masses, then, and it doesn't mean everybody has to be harmed. If there's 1, 2 people, they walk this way, it can be a means of difficulty. That there are children who walk this road. Now they on their way to school, they go on their way to madrasa, they go on their way to the shop, whatever the case may be. They can be harmed by this. Let me remove this so that they don't get injured. There are old women who walk here. Obviously, she can't jump over if there's a hole in the road. And so let me make a plan around it. Little things, but great rewards at the end of the day. Okay, that being that, I know, like I say, I've spent too much time tonight already, so we will end on this point here for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. We will continue on from the 12th hadith in our next class. But may Allah grant us the understanding to be able to understand and imbibe these lessons from the ahadith, because we don't read the ahadith to simply read it. We read it and Allah rewards us just for reading it. We read it and Allah rewards you for listening to it. So you get your reward from all of that, not to be mistaken. But the point being that the main reason behind everything is so that we can try and make an amal upon these things. So like I say, if you're a woman, you don't exactly have the capability to go and fill potholes over there. You don't have you're not in the same position as men to be able to do things. And nobody's saying go to the location over there far away and start filling the potholes over there where you in an area where there's gangsters and they're going to rob you. Nobody's saying do that either. But in your normal daily life, going around where you see there's some way I can help, I can be of benefit and things, do that. That is the lesson we can take home from tonight's ahadith, that wherever possible, be of help, and it is something that Allah will reward you for at the end of the day. So with that being said, we end on this point here for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Until next time, we end and we say, وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ وَبَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ نَشْهَدُ أَن لَّا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ نَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَنَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.